Well, thank you everybody for coming on here. We're going to talk about retargeting, something that I'm pretty passionate about right now. This is webinar number 4. So I'll just get started in saying that my name is Tom LaFaso. Today we're going to be talking about basically something that I believe is burning a hole in a lot of people's pockets, which is retargeting and the 97% of people that land on your site but then leave it, right? So we're going to dive into that. I'd like to just talk a little bit about who I am, kind of what we have going on here. If this is your first time coming to one of the webinars, this being number 4, we've done a few more before that, so this might be like number 5 or 6 or something like that. But either way, we're calling this webinar number 4. The goal of this is basically we're calling it like the dominance series. And in that case, we want to help you dominate the internet, right? And crush it on social media, across Google, whatever platform it may be. We have the other webinars that are on YouTube right now. You can go check them out. The page for it's TLO Productions, TLO Production. We like to tell everybody it's like J-Lo, but with a T. So yeah, I mean, these have so far they've been great though. But I want to talk about before we even get into this, like why am I even doing this? How do I even know about what's going on here? TLO Productions now has been around for about 5-6 years basically. We started in 2020s when we took like the big leap of faith, officially incorporated in August of 21. And from that point on, we have helped probably at this point hundreds of businesses help with their digital marketing. If it's not from creating content, it's from, SEO, things like writing blogs, website design. We've created over 100 different websites for businesses all around the country. And now a little bit more recently getting into the advertising space. But before even starting the business, I had lots of experience doing sales and marketing and working with a company that did advertising. So I learned a lot of these things. And even on the creative side, I've been making videos since I'm like 8, 9, 10 years old. But overall, this is exactly what I love to do. It's help people grow their business, create content for them. I did a project years ago when I was in college, and it was an entrepreneur class, and I basically created this business without knowing that this is exactly what I was going to do. And in that entrepreneur class, I had to create a PowerPoint basically about the company and the ultimate goal for it. Had a fun name too. We called it DM Studios, and the tagline was "We'll slide for you," right? We'll slide into your DMs. I felt I had to explain that to too many people, so I was like, it's probably not a good name. But I remember writing in that project how passionate I was at the time about just a local deli having, let's say, the best potato salad, in several towns around, but nobody even knows it, right? And with the power of marketing, things like social media, videos, content creation, advertising, now that deli has people coming from, 3, 4, 5, 10 towns over, coming from a different county just to have their potato salad, right? For example. So it's something that we've definitely found some passion in. And, having a background in sales, having a background in marketing, going to school for business marketing, a lot of that gives us this unique approach, as well as, also behind the scenes, content creation, cameras, all of that, right? We're here in our podcast studio. We've got cameras, we got lights, we've got microphones. We've got even this cool, projecting light here that it looks like palm trees, right? So we've got all kinds of fun little toys and so on and so forth to help people create, the best content possible and really showcase their business as best as we can. But I want to talk about today about the retargeting machine. And you can see here capturing the 97% who leave your website, right? I think this is something major that a lot of people don't have in mind. And this goes from the person who just starts their business and looks at their analytics on their website and sees, I only have, 7 people that have come to my website. Why do I really care about this? To the person who has thousands of people going to their website every month. Both should really care just as much, because even if the numbers are low, the way that the machine works or the way that the process still works is exactly the same, right? And maybe you're somebody who has a higher ticket sale, right? Maybe you're a lawyer, or maybe you're a insurance guy or a contractor or something along those lines, where you could sell something at 50 to 100,000 or make a commission or something like that, right? So it might be different if it's only 7 people landing on your website as opposed to the person who sells a $20 item and needs thousands of people to land on their website in order to make money. So it's different for everyone. But I want to talk about this 97% bounce rate in a sense. So, Mike, do me a favor. All right. So the traffic leak, right? So I think this is cool. We were talking about like burning a hole in people's pocket in a sense, because this is exactly what happens, right? People pay for traffic to go to their website in some case, right? They pay for ads. They have a banner out in the street, a billboard, or, you ever see the real estate agents? They have the little grocery, in the grocery stores on the shopping cart. They've got their advertisement there. All of those things, they work really well. Average cold calling bounce rate, average cold traffic bounce rate is 97 to 98%. So basically, look, somebody is interested in your service, they come across your ad, whatever it is, the likelihood of them just landing on your site after being somewhat interested in your product or service and leaving is very, very high, because a lot of times people aren't making that decision right away, especially if you have a higher price point, right? If you're selling $10 or $20 items, yeah, they might just buy it right then and there because it doesn't, require a lot. But if you're, let's say, someone that's, redoing a kitchen, they might have to really think about this. And, it might take time for them to come back. We see like no purchases, no calls, they don't fill out any forms. They just jump into the website and then they're out, right? We call this top of funnel. So if you're not familiar with how, the funnel works, in a sense, just picture a funnel, right? And these people are right at the top. They're like the big wide net that we're casting out there trying to go after these people. So these people come in, they're not necessarily super motivated. Sometimes they are, but a lot of times you're going after a group of people that maybe need your service, maybe don't. So you might have to educate. You might have to hit them several times with the ads, right? So we need a machine that's going to be able to catch these people. And this is basically proven at this point. Now, there's a variety of different ways you can kind of go about this. You can see other marketers doing this. You see this very common with like coaches or people that are trying to sell marketing services as well. They'll have these very intense campaigns where they'll hit you 100 different ways to try and get you to buy their product or their service, right? So again, I think this is just something very, very important that we all need to keep in mind, is that doesn't matter if you're the person that has 5 people coming to your website every month. You have to take in mind that most of those 5 people are just going to come to the site, check it out for a few minutes, and then boom, they're gone. All right, so what are we going to do to make sure that they stick around and that they keep coming back? And this, I think, is really interesting, right? So understanding the machine is basically like 3 or 4 different things that we can kind of go into, but ultimately it's like tracking, right? So we want to make sure that we're tracking the right people, we're putting them into the right categories, and then we're doing some sort of like high intent follow-up of some sort, right? We're going after the prospects in some strategic way. Let's say, for example, you're like an e-commerce company, you're selling products. We can tell, let's say, if they put something in their cart or they didn't put something in their cart, right? So we could segment them. You can also segment them based on, let's say maybe their demographic, where they are, the actual service that they're looking for. If you're somebody that does, multiple services, you can segment them, into those different services, right? So this is just kind of understanding that there's steps involved to this machine, but now we're going to dive really deep into it so I can explain each one of these. So let's jump to the next one. We're going to talk about the invisible net. All right, so here you can see that's not really a picture of an invisible net. I'm not exactly sure, but whatever. It does the trick. It's a net, right? Or a web in this case. Pixels and tags, that's the foundation. Maybe you've heard of pixels, maybe you haven't heard of pixels. I will try and do my best to explain it to you on like the most basic of levels. But pixel, for example, or Google tags, another word, and there's multiple other names for this in a sense. Facebook is probably the most, I wouldn't say important, but the most popular that you would hear is Facebook pixel, right? And basically all it is putting like a piece of invisible code on the back end of your website. And what it does is it'll anonymously attach an ID to the visitors that come to your website, right? So it's almost like an IP address, right? An advertisement comes through on someone's Facebook page, they click the advertisement, they land on your website. Now that they're on your website, this pixel will grab their information and hold on to it. Now, once it has that information, it has the ability to go back to them and hit them on Facebook again, or hit them on Instagram with another advertisement. So the pixel, the way it works is it'll trigger basically right when they land on the website. It'll track exactly what they view. And the way that you set up the pixel, it can be very specific or it could be broad. If you just want to know, I just want to know if people land on the website, or, hey, I want to know, what did they click on? What did they buy? Did they put something in their cart, etc., right? And it'll tell you how long they were on the website for. It'll even tell you if they didn't buy something. So these are all things that are extremely valuable when it comes to tracking, data and information and making sure that you have everything lined up in this campaign to make sure that the machine is running correctly, right? I mean, what I want to talk about with pixels and tags, I'm just remembering, is a client that I spoke to last week. This is somebody we've been working with for probably about a year now. They're great at what they do, highly, highly successful. And they've been working with us to create the videos for them. And this is common where they're working with us to create the videos. And then they also have another agency that they're working with and they help them out with some advertising and some Google things, etc. A lot of times that's how I get my foot in the door with people. It's like, hey, we'll help you out with content creation. And then let's see where the relationship goes from there. So it's been about a year we're working together. We did an audit on his website recently because we had a conversation about it. I said, look, let me look into it, and see what we can do for you. So we looked into his site. We did the audit. And the biggest red flag, now there were some things that were wrong and maybe some things that looked like it was done lazy and whatever, but he's paying for advertising on Facebook. And the biggest thing that I saw, the biggest red flag, is that his pixel was not connected to his website. So after what I just told you is basically he's paying for advertisements on Facebook and he's not doing any retargeting. So he's just constantly doing this top of funnel campaign. Now, is that the worst thing ever? Maybe not. And, maybe it worked in some cases. Okay, fine. But it's probably the most expensive way to run ads. And it's realistically not the most effective, right? If you have people that are clicking on the links and they're going to your website and then you're never hitting them with an advertisement ever again, you're just taking that information and just throwing it out. So you could collect that information as people are landing on the site. And then later on in the day, you can hit them with an ad, later in the week or later in the month. So cold versus warm, cold traffic versus retargeting. So the first touch, which is cold, right? Again, this is really only going to work in most cases if somebody is like highly, highly, highly motivated or it's a low price item, right? If it's like $10, $20, maybe even today's world with inflation and everything, $30 or $40, something like that. But you're interpreting strangers in a sense, right? I'm sorry, you're interrupting them because at the end of the day, you're just coming across their feed, right? So there's a lot of friction involved with this. There's not really any trust. It's cold, right? It's like a cold call. When you cold call somebody, I mean, it's happened to me. You get cursed out. They're like, "Who are you? What are you doing?" Right? You're interrupting my day. So you're asking for them to make a decision on something that they're like not ready for, whatever it is, right? So that just takes time. Again, can it happen? Absolutely. There's plenty of times where you hit somebody with an ad at the right time or you cold call that person at the right time and then boom, they're ready to go. But in this case, we don't recommend that, this is the way to go. We try and hit them on the third, fourth, fifth touch, right? So in this case, the fifth touch, right? Recognizing your brand. I believe it's 3 times somebody needs to see you in order to like recognize you whatsoever. Then after 3, it's about 7 times to remember you. And then it's about 24 times for them to pull the trigger on your product or service. So it does take a lot. The 24 is that really big number of somebody being like, oh yeah, I keep seeing this person. I'm finally ready to go. And that is not going to be your, maybe that's only a percentage of the buyers in your industry that need to get to the 24, right? If you're selling a pair of sneakers that are $100, yeah, you might not need to show it to somebody 24 times. But let's say you are a remodeler and somebody's really thinking about remodeling their house or their kitchen or their bathroom, and they know it's going to cost them, 40, 50, $100,000. Well, it might take them 20 something times to see, not only just your advertisements, but they might need to see billboards or trucks driving around on the street or mailers coming in or emails, right? So all these different things that kind of equal to that fifth touch, or in some cases, that 20 something touch, right? And this is for everybody. If you're the low totem pole guy where you just started your business and you're like, I only have, 5 people coming to my website, well, hit them as many times as you can to make sure that, they recognize your brand and you're just reminding them to finish a thought process. And I love that. Because I was saying this to Mike before we started and he was laughing. He thought I was just practicing. And I was like, no, like, how many times have we been in these situations where, we're doing something, a thought comes in, oh man, I need this product or this service, and I don't necessarily know what to do right now. So I'm going to look it up and I'm going to do a little bit of research. And, I know my roof is probably on the way out and I probably should do it in the next year or 2. Obviously it's not leaking, but I know it's, about 15 years old. So let me just look it up and see if there's anybody in the area that can help me out, and I do have the money, but I'm not sure. So I look it up and I go down this whole path of trying to look at a roof and then I just get sidetracked. My kid runs up to me or the phone rings or whatever it is and I completely forget about it. But I did land on that person's website, right? So now that business gets to remind them to finish their thought process. And it can be later that day, it could be later that week, it could be months later. You could hit them with an advertisement, say, let's go back to the retargeting campaign and crank it up. All right, so I think this is something that everybody needs to keep in mind. And there's ways to do this. It doesn't necessarily have to be advertising. It doesn't have to be an ad that comes through. If you run it correctly, in a sense where you're the person looking for the roof, you land on their website, maybe you filled out some sort of form. Well, now as the business owner, you have their email address. You can call them, you can send them emails, you can send them emails for the next 6 months if you want to, right? There's so many things that you can do that will help your business grow and make more money ultimately for yourself. It just takes a little bit of effort. And there's either people like myself, virtual assistants that you can hire, local interns that you can hire. There's all different types of people that can help you kind of put this together and ultimately get you more business, right? All right, let's go to the next one. We're just going to talk about the 3 pillars. The 3 pillars are, so the first pillar just goes into technology realistically, right? What we were talking about before, which is making sure you're tracking that data that comes in. Now, pixels, analytics, I can't say that this slideshow goes like into full detail of what I was just talking about, but again, let's go beyond just the tracking of pixels, right? And collecting those analytics. Let's talk about like, hey, someone lands on your website and there's a form fill for them, or subscribe to my email list, right? Having those opportunities or forms for people to fill out is more data for you to pull in. And the more data that you have, just the more powerful you are. I can't tell you how many times, in a month, probably, I would say at least anywhere from 4 to 10 times in a month, I will hear from people, hey, I saw your videos. I go to networking events. I meet people. I get their business card. I immediately put them into our CRM. And then I take a picture. I send it to the woman who works with me. I say, can we please send an email to this person and set it up, right? That's the manual process. But we could do the same thing with pixels, right? We can put it on the back end of the website. It can collect their information. It can do the follow-up for you with retargeting on Facebook and Instagram, right? The audience is the second segment here, the second pillar, right? Strategic. I think this is what I was talking about before, is like kind of splitting between, oh, this is somebody who just viewed the item and this is somebody who put it in their cart. I want to go after the people who put it in their cart, and I want to create content specifically for those people, right? Or, hey, this person contacted me and I want to make, an advertisement specifically for them because they filled out the form, as opposed to the person who just landed on the website and is still a little bit cold, right? And we can do that because we have that information. We have the pixel information that tells us what did they do when they landed on the website. And then from there, we get to make a decision. And obviously all of this gets set up. It's all automated. No one's sitting there pressing buttons. Like, no, it's all happening, by a computer. All right, cool. So the creative. All right, we're back. All right, so number 3, we're just going to talk about the 30-day visitors, the creative dynamic messaging, right? So giving them this is basically what I was just saying, right? So the exact message based on where they left. There's also like landing pages where we could get super specific here. So I think this is something that I can just talk about, very quickly. And maybe you've seen this before, or someone's told you about this. But let's say we create a campaign that has 3 different segments to it, right? The first one is going to be top of funnel. Hey, my name is Tom. I do marketing. I can help your business grow. So that's like number 1. Number 2 would be a little bit more direct. Hey, I saw you clicked on my website. You're struggling with your business. You don't have time for content, whatever, right? And then the third one, let's say I create a separate landing page specifically for the person who hasn't purchased at this point. That's like way more direct. Like, what are you waiting for, right? So they finally land on that page. I know they landed on that page because they got the ad, they got the link for it, I got the information that said, and then I say, okay, now send them this third video. And the third video is basically me being like, what are you waiting for? And now the whole dynamic changes, right? We have dynamic messaging, and that goes into the creative and so on and so forth. But giving them an exact ad based on the page that they left, I think is something very, very important. All right, let's talk about budget really quickly, though. This is something that comes up a lot. It's kind of a tough question that I get because every business is different and I don't know how much money you have. Honestly, you probably shouldn't ask your CPA about how much you should put into marketing because they're gonna tell you to cut costs. My grandfather, he was head of sales for this really large glitter and pearlescent company. He was obviously involved in the marketing aspect of things, and he told me never stop marketing. Even if you're running out of product, never stop marketing, because you never want to make people believe that you're closing up shop or whatever. And I believe that, right? We want to put as much as we can into the marketing funnel so we know that our business will continue to grow. And you don't want to look back after 90 days or 6 months or whatever and be like, man, I should have not stopped what I was doing there, because look, it's now coming back to me. And that's what happens. It's not immediate. It's always at the 90-day or the 6-month mark when you stop. So when it comes to budget, obviously look at what you have as far as to spend. They do say it's like 10% of what you make should be your marketing budget. In this case, what we're talking about is where you're going to put that money, right? So let's say you have a $10,000 budget, just for even numbers, right? It's basically saying for top of funnel you're going to put $7,000 into that, and for retargeting you're going to put $3,000 into that, right? So this will feed your machine. The top of funnel is very important. If you don't put money into the top of funnel, eventually it will die, right? The retargeting machine eventually dies. It doesn't always just keep pumping and pumping and pumping. You need to keep pulling in new people who've never heard of you before, etc. So the top of funnel is done through a variety of different ways. The way that we do it here, that we believe works the best, is you do a mixture of Google and a mixture of Facebook, right? So with Google, for example, someone's Google searching pay per click, right? I'm looking for a contractor, right? So I Google search it, I land on their website, I don't move forward with it, right? But now that's the top of funnel right through Google. Now I have the next step would be following up with the retargeting campaign, right? So we would have Google being our top of funnel where people are just coming in, and then we would retarget with Facebook and Instagram, where now later in the day after their Google search, or later in the week after their Google search, they will get that advertisement. They'll see a video of, hey, wait, wasn't I just on this guy's website earlier in the week or earlier today, and now I'm getting his advertisement. And this is exactly what we see all the time, right? You look at a pair of sneakers, you go on the website, you see if they have your size, you click out of it later that day. You just went through their top of funnel, let's say, because you typed in, red sneaker or red Nikes or something like that. And then later in the day, you get hit with the retarget. And if they're anything like some of these shoe companies out there, they are relentless. They will just keep hitting you with the ad. And it might even be months later, right? You're like, man, I really did like those shoes and I never bought them. And now I'm getting the ad for those sneakers 3 months later, right? So just remember that the retargeting will die if you don't keep bringing in cold traffic or new traffic, right? It starts cold and then it gets warm as we retarget them, and people will fall off, right? And we can see that if they're not engaging with the ads, then we stop it. We're not going to keep retargeting them. All right, let's talk about omnichannel presence though, which I think is something that's really, really cool. This is what I think is like kind of like the superhero of this whole thing, right? It makes you look super cool. You look like you're huge. This is a way that you look like, hey, I'm on like the New York Stock Exchange. I've been selling stocks in my business for 100 years. Like, this is how you look that large. And it's an illusion, realistically, right? But like, you can have the worst product, the worst service, and you can be on television and have advertisements. Like, you can literally put yourself on TV as long as you have money, right? If you have $5,000, you can go to CNN or Fox News and say, hey, I want to make an advertisement. So it's a complete illusion, because no one's going to ask you, hey, do you have a good product or service? Can I see your reviews? I would like to see, what you've done in the past. Like, they're not going to ask you that. They're just going to say, let's take your money. Thank you very much. And same thing goes with Google. Same thing goes with Facebook and all the other platforms. They don't care who you are. They don't care about your business. As long as you're not selling drugs or trying to sell weapons or something like that. Okay, fine. But you could be the worst roofer in the world and still pay for ads. Or you could have a product that something that people, I don't know, lotion or something like that, and it has no testing involved, and you could be selling it and putting tons of money behind it. It's a wild world, right? So that all being said, the illusion of being on all these platforms, we're going to call it the omni-channel presence. So let's say Monday, there's a Google search, right? I go on, I'm looking for the contractor, the roofer, whatever. Monday, I type it in. Okay, my kid runs up to me, totally distracted, forget about it. Tuesday, I'm on Instagram first thing in the morning. I'm scrolling through. Boom, there's the roofer. Hey, wow, I just was on this guy's website yesterday. Oh, that's pretty interesting. Wow, that's really interesting. Oh, wow, it looks like they have some sort of deal or something like that. Whatever, keep scrolling, because it's 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm starting my day, right? Now it's Wednesday, and there's a news banner ad, right? I'm on the New York Times website, and I'm reading an article about something crazy. Donald Trump said something. The whole world's going nuts. And then all of a sudden, I'm on the news, and then boom, there's a banner ad right at the top, and it's the same roofing company. I'm like, oh, wow, look at that. Okay, cool. Well, then next day goes on, and I'm on YouTube. It's Thursday, and I'm watching my favorite YouTube video. And as I click the video before the video starts, boom, there's the owner of the roofing company. He's like, hey, I know your roof has some problems. What are you waiting for? Now, yes, That is probably the most legit way to do this and probably the most expensive way to do this. However, it builds massive brand authority. You look like the biggest company out there. If you can hit somebody 4 days on 4 different platforms, they're going to be like, who is this guy? What are they doing over there? They obviously have something going on, right? And then what happens is that this will lower your cost of acquisition. As time goes on, you're going to get more people involved, more people into your funnel, and you ultimately start to save money. So I'm going to show you on this next slide a little bit more about how this works. So day 1 through 3 is hot, right? So strategy is immediate action. Again, this is depending on your industry, it might defer a little bit, right? But immediate action, urgency, we can do like a direct offer, scarcity, the exact product reminder, right? Roofing is probably not the best option here if you're looking for like that hot 1 to 3 mark. However, if you're somebody whose roof is leaking, then yes, you are in this hot market, right? If you're just somebody who's thinking about redoing the tile in their bathroom, just thinking about it, you're not going to be too hot in this category. However, they might say something in this video that can trigger you, right? And that's why we'll start these types of videos with a big pain point, right? Is your roof leaking right now? Are you currently dealing with this? Did you know that there could be mold behind the tiles in your bathroom, right? You scare somebody. Oh my gosh, I didn't know that, right? And now I'm hot, as opposed to, not being. But let's say they don't, right? Then they go into that next one, day 4 to 14, which is warm. Right. So now we change the message a little bit. We work with like overcoming objections. The creative goes into more like testimonials, things like case studies, public relations, right? If you're somebody who does like philanthropic work, we can throw any of that in there and be like, look, this guy's great. Work with them. But testimonials, I would say, is a great one. And then education, like overcoming some sort of objection that comes in, like, oh, I don't have the time to do this, or like, the guy's like, oh, I have to talk to my wife first, whatever it is. We try and blow through those barriers. The next one is the cool, right? And obviously this is a little bit more difficult. However, I have seen this in my own business of just something as simple as sending out emails every week to people that I haven't spoken to in a year and they call me, right? So you could stay in this cool phase and become warm, hot overnight. You don't necessarily know what's happening in somebody's life that's going to cause them to get over the finish line and start working with you. We don't know. And there's so many different scenarios that are out there, right? I had a client recently. We were working with a plumber. We post all of our clients on our own social media because we like to help amplify what we're doing for them and push their name out there a little bit more. And we post a video of the plumber. And then last week, I reached out to a gentleman that I haven't spoken to in a while, someone I network with. And he's just like, hey, because you post this plumber, my water heater broke and I needed to get a new water heater. And he's like, yeah, I hired the guy that you make the videos. And I was like, wow, how amazing is that? He probably made like, 5 or 10 grand. I would only assume. And this is all from a video I posted of my client, right? But again, we don't necessarily know how these things are going to come about. You don't know what somebody's life is like. You're not in their shoes. You don't know. So we have to make sure that we're hitting them across all of these phases. And sometimes that cool phase can be a year. Right? I had a client, I spoke to him in Christmas, right before Christmas of 2024. I don't even remember talking to the guy. I don't remember it at all. I went back into my notes. I sent him a contract, but I don't remember talking to the guy. But what we did do over the course of 12 months is we sent him emails every week. He got put into our email list. And every week we sent him an email. And then 12 months later, who calls me is this guy, hey, I'm ready to move forward. I was like, wait, what? Not even any idea who he is, knowing that I already sent him out a contract a year prior, and boom, we move forward. The craziest part is he found me through Google and he paid us an entire year up front. Again, this is all just from kind of, caressing somebody as time goes on, right? All right, so let's go to slide 10 here, which is cost per acquisition, which is what I was just talking about. I really just want you guys to pay attention. It's a graph and it's going down, right? Basically, as you do this, the cost per acquisition will go down as the machine matures, the blending cost drops. And basically what that means is that you're going to spend most of your money on the top of funnel right away, right? Especially if you're a new business. If you're someone who's like, hey, look, my website already pulls in 1,000 people a month, we don't really have to worry too much about top of funnel. But if you're somebody and you go, my website pulls in 2 people every month, we're going to go, okay, we might have to focus a little bit on the top of funnel because now we need people to land on your website. And without that, obviously we can't close deals. And there's other ways to do the top of funnel, but this is specifically looking at, let's say, digital advertising, right? So you would start with dumping a ton of money into Google, saying, all right, I want to put most of my dollars right now into the top of funnel. Maybe your budget at first is going to be more like 90-10, and then it'll go to like 80-20, and then it'll go to that 70-30 that we were talking about before, where it becomes a little bit more closer. But it's very important to understand that, because at first nothing's really going to happen. You're going to be doing top of funnel depending on your industry, depending on the sale itself. If you have some crazy offer, obviously a lot of that comes into play. However, from just like understanding the market and how this works, is a lot of times there's not going to be many big moves in the first 30, 60 days, because you kind of have to work down this scale a little bit, right? You want a lot of retargeting to happen, because that's where the magic happens, especially in a service. If you're selling $20 items, you're not really going to be doing tons of retargeting, because you'll be able to sell at the top of the funnel in most cases, right? So it's a little different. Let's jump to the next one, beyond the pixel. So ads buy attention, content secures loyalty. But my favorite part is talking about organic content, right? So let's talk about the organic ecosystem is what we have it on here. But yeah, let's jump to the next slide. So I think ads are super important, because that will get people to land on your website. But we need to show authenticity, right? Authentic content. Being on social media, it shows like a relationship with the community that you might have, or whatever it is. My biggest problem that I see all the time is people posting just like generic nonsense on social media. You see it a lot with insurance companies, where they're just like, it's, National Shoelace Day, I'm going to post something. Like, it's the most ridiculous thing sometimes, where you're just like, no one cares. That does literally nothing. I'm not going to remember that. I mean, something that ridiculous, I probably would remember, but like, whatever it is, like National Burrito Day, it's almost irrelevant. It doesn't really do anything for you. It's very generic. We're seeing this a ton right now with the AI, and there's been complaints from creators or business people. I think most of the complaints are probably coming from people in the marketing space. However, people don't like seeing this like regurgitated ChatGPT look, and everyone knows what I'm talking about. Like this cartoony look that they have. Yeah, it'll make you a nice advertisement, but is it really what's going to get somebody over the edge? So what I want to focus on when it comes to content creation is high quality content creation, right? Because if you're going to mix the advertising with high quality content creation, when someone's doing their research, when they see the advertisement and maybe they don't click the link, maybe they click your logo and they decide to land on your Facebook page or your Instagram page, now the game changes, right? What's there? What are they going to see? Are they going to see the owner of the company saying, I can get you the best insurance quote. All you have to do is call me, right? Very different. I don't think the burrito stuff's going to get somebody over the edge if you're the insurance person, right? So, all right, long form podcasts are a great way to do this, and showing like behind the scenes, right? I always say who you are, what you do, what makes you different, and where people can find you. That's the last part of it. But prove that you're an authority in what you do, and it helps the retargeting ads, like it'll help bring them back. Ultimately, you want people to try and follow you on social media. So if it's maybe something where it's an in-person meeting, right? Someone comes to your office, or you go to them out in the field and you're doing an estimate, try and tell them, hey, follow me on social media. Check us out. Check out our page. Give us a like. Give us a follow. By doing that, they can instantly become a fan. Now your retargeting campaign doesn't have to work as hard, because now every time you post, you're going to come up on their social media feed. And typically that happens, right? When someone follows you on social media, you tend to see their content for a little while, right? And if you engage with their content, forget it. You're always going to see it. You're never not going to see what they post. And I think that's something to keep in mind, right? If they're really looking for someone to help them with the roof or the pavers or the bathroom, or they need a companion agency to help them out with their elderly mom or whatever, have them follow you on social media, and boom, now they're a fan of yours, right? So the next thing I want to talk about, Mike, we can jump to that next slide here, which is just talking about I guess kind of like the excuses in a sense that I hear. Some of the, we call this the pillar content strategy, but I hear people all the time, I don't have time, so I'll give you basically I guess, again, we're going to call it the pillar content strategy. This is what you can do to try and make things run a little bit more smooth for yourself, right? So 1 hour a month recording. We work with people where they can come here for an hour. It could be 2 hours. It could be 3 hours, 4 hours. It's very rare. It's over like 3 or 4 hours, though, to create videos. You can do a podcast in that time, right? In 1 hour, you can sit down, you can pull out your phone, stop using your webcam realistically, and use your phone more often, because it looks way better. Sit outside if you want to, or sit by a window, right? Make sure the lighting looks good. and create content. Just talk for 20 minutes, talk for an hour if you can. And then you can create micro clips, right? You can create short form social media content from that. And then now, now you have content for the next 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, right? Depending on how much you're creating in that time period. But you should be posting as often as possible. There is somebody out there by the name of Gary Vee. He's talking about using bots and all these types of AI and so on to post 400 times a day, which is insane. I'm not suggesting anybody does that. That's obviously way too much to be posting 400 times a day, but do your best, right? You want to make sure that you're posting as frequently as possible, but also keeping the quality high. This goes into just what I was talking about before, right? Stock photos, press releases, invisible to consumers, right? Zero emotional connection. This is what we see a lot of times with a variety of different companies and organizations is they just post like super generic or like content that just has no emotion behind it, no feeling, right? And like that's what people want. They want to feel something. They want to see it and be like, wow, I feel like I was there. I was helping them out or whatever. And that's the content people like most cases is something that makes them feel something or learn something, right? So try and stay away from the stock photos on things, in videos. If you have to use stock videos and you can't, show yourself answering the phone or working with your clients, we get that. Obviously not, maybe you don't always have the ability to get that, but if you can avoid it, definitely do so. You see a lot of times people will just post just like flyers or like a press release or something like that. You might need more than that. You might need several photos in a row, or maybe it's a video of you talking about what's on the flyer, right? Which can go, way, way further. So we want to make sure that we're just not being invisible ultimately. Authentic storytelling, I would say, is the number way to do this, right? People like the raw office dynamics, honest business lessons. I think that's something that we've seen, even just talking about stories that have happened in their past, right? Like, hey, I was working with this client, this is what we experienced, this is what happened, whatever. And it makes them feel like they know before they call you, right? So they know. But if you're a smaller company and you're the one creating the content, like myself, for example, if you go on my social media, you contact us, there's a good chance you're going to talk to me on the phone, and that might make you feel way more comfortable as opposed to calling some other company that the owner's on all the videos and then you call and the owner's nowhere to be found, right? Let's go into the content trifecta. Educational, answer Google questions, build authority. So that's like number one here, educational. Two is behind the scenes, which is just showing like some fun, the messy reality, team culture. It builds a lot of trust though. And then obviously client success, emotional video stories, and the ultimate proof. Like, hey, look, what I sell works. We do a great job. People love what we do. That's ultimately that. And if you have more questions about creating content, this is the one topic that I added into here. We'll cut it here. We don't have to really go too much further into it, but if you have questions about like, hey, do you have any ideas on what types of videos I should make or where I should begin or equipment I should buy, whatever, I'm happy to talk. I don't charge for these types of things. I'm just a nerd and I like sharing my expertise. So hit me up. Happy to chat. All right, let's jump to the next slide, though, which is the in-person amplification. If Adam is still on this call, he will like this slide, which basically just talks about trade shows, nonprofits, galas, local networking, right? So all three of these things I find to be huge. But yeah, I mean, look, I think Nooks and Socials is a good example. Local networking chambers, they have like BNIs and lit tips and things like that. I won't go into what I feel about them, but some of these things are really, really good, right? You're meeting people, you're getting yourself out there. So, right, let's just use a trade show, for example. You go there, you bring business cards and flyers, so you can hand them out, use QR codes so people can land on your website, and then boom, now they're in your pixel, right? It's the same thing. It's no different than them finding you on Google or Instagram. It's like, hey, here's a flyer. Hey, check out my website. Hey, if you can, scan this QR code that's right here and check out the landing page that we made. And then boom, now they're in there. So you can take your trade show and you can amplify it on the digital world because the people that walk past your booth, you're never going to see them again, realistically. But if you can get them, hey, scan this QR code, right? We did big signs at the last trade show that said, are you a business owner, with a big QR code right there, right? Same thing. Get them into the landing page, collect their information, and boom, we can hit them with retargeting. The goal of in person is to just amplify what you're doing, right? If you're doing the digital, why not do some in person to amplify that? Don't you want more people in your local area to know that you're making social media videos? Great. Well, when you're at the chamber event on a Tuesday for lunch and you sit down next to 2 or 3 people, you say, hey, my name is Tom. This is what I do. Do you guys use social media? Oh yeah, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on this. Great. Here, you should follow me. Check out my page. I'd love, I'll follow you, right? And work it that way. Use this as your digital business card, because most business cards people are just going to throw out anyway. So you can get them into some sort of funnel that you have. If it's going to be the organic funnel, or if it's going to be, your pixel funnel where you start putting them into the paid ad. And again, the last is obviously the local networking. Like I said, things like Nooks and Socials is great. You want to just be around people as much as possible. And then as you start to do this, you will get you'll hear from the people that you're networking with, hey, this is working, right? I went to a gala 2 weeks ago. I run into a woman I know. Hey, I've been seeing your videos. They look great. By the way, my husband's here. I want to introduce you to him. He's looking for videos, right? Boom. Clearly that works, right? Or the business coach I was talking to. Hey, that video you did, you spoke so well. That was amazing. I loved watching that. Great. I love it. It must mean that this is working, right? So you get that gratification. All right, we're gonna just jump to the next slide here, which is basically action items, next steps, things like that. But it's basically, look, this is like what we do. We help people out from pixels, podcast, ad campaigns. We love helping people in this space. It's a lot of fun for us. I say keeping me busy keeps me out of trouble in a sense, and this is one of the ways I keep myself busy is helping people grow their business, and ultimately it helps us grow too, right? So we don't just shoot pretty videos; we build your entire verification vault, which I think is something that maybe other agencies aren't talking about as often, but we want to make sure that you have the machine, and we're that media arm for so many people where they can come to us and say, hey, I need this, or I have this idea or this campaign, and how do we execute? So we'll do things like we'll come in and we'll film videos for you. We obviously have this studio space here where people can come and film podcasts, or do what I'm doing here, a webinar, or what we call talking head videos where they just sit on camera and talk. But we also do like cinematic brand stories, right? Where we'll go. We just had a interior designer, right? We went to their place that they designed for a client. We got the client, we got the interior designer on camera. They're walking down the corridor explaining, this fixture and these walls and this types of floors, right? And you get this really nice cinematic look of, who you are, what you do, what makes you different, like I was saying before, wrapped into one nice package, right? So also something cool that we did and when we spoke about recently, which is authentic, like team culture videos, basically showing that like, hey, we have a great culture here. And especially if you're trying to build your company up and hire more people and so on, it's a great way to do so because you can say like, hey, every Friday is, you wear jeans to the office, or we do like fun Fridays, and we, do like hula days, and like, I don't know, I'm making things up, but there's things like that people do in order to show that culture, and you can put that on camera and have fun with it and create content all around that, right? So, and we'll guide people through that, right? We'll have those conversations with them and help them go into the right path and let them know, hey, maybe you should make this kind of content here, and maybe you shouldn't make that kind of content here. I'm never going to be shy to tell somebody yes or no to what they're doing. So, and then we do everything after that. We edit the videos, we post them on social media for them, even prior to, if they need like scripts or anything, teleprompter, anything like that, we can help them out with. We'll build an advertising campaign by creating videos. We know, okay, who's your target market? We'll start hitting them on Google and on Facebook, top of funnel, really wide net. And then we start to bring them in as we understand, who they are and who that clientele exactly is. And we hit them with different advertisements as time goes on, et cetera, right? We want to turn the cold clicks that you're getting, right? People that are coming in cold, and we want to turn it into money, a revenue for you. If you're not making money in this whole thing, then what's the point of advertising? What's the point of marketing? We all want to grow. And if you don't want to grow, then, you don't need to do any of this stuff. So, all right, last slide is pretty much just questions and answers. If anybody has any Q&A stuff for us. Yeah, I mean, if you have any questions, have anything about the retargeting machine, my email is right there, tom@tloproduction.com. You can shoot me an email.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I don't know if you cover this or not. Are the costs for the remarketing and retargeting campaigns still fairly low? Like I remember years ago, there were pennies on the dollar where you would get a lot of impressions if people saw them, but if they didn't click on them, you just got the impressions, and if they clicked on them, then it would go to your Google campaign that would then be a low click cost item.
It's still the same. Like they're still very inexpensive, and that's why we showed a graph before that was just kind of representing like as you build the pool of people to retarget, your cost will go down. However, if you set your budget to, let's say, $1,000 a month, it'll just find another way to spend the money in a sense, right? But you can put a little bit less into your top of funnel at first, and then you'll put most of it into the retargeting after the fact once you start getting a lot of people retargeting. But yeah, I mean, I've seen retargeting campaigns as cheap as like 2 cents to get somebody onto the site. But I've also seen top of funnel be $150 to get somebody to watch a video or click it. Yeah, it just depends. It's obviously vastly different depending on the business. And there's a lot of research out there now, which is nice. Like, it doesn't have to be as much guessing, right? I can talk to AI or Google and say, like, all right, this is the type of business we have. This is their target market. What's average cost, is it going to cost for somebody if we're doing top of funnel versus retargeting? And every time with retargeting, it's so much cheaper. So, yeah.
No, I'm rocking sexy salad.
Oh, okay.
and
Mike goes, I
and
think he's at Mongo's.
no, I love Mongo. I'll be at Mongo's tomorrow. We have an event. We have actually two events there tomorrow, back to back in the morning. Tom, you were great. Your cadence, the rate of speech, your voice, your tonality. I've been listening to you the whole time while getting work done, and you did a great job educating. I didn't watch the slides. I actually didn't know there were slides, so sorry.
It's okay.
But great job. I was really proud of you, and I'm not surprised that you did an awesome job.
Yeah,
That would
that
be
would be
real
great.
AI.
The last time
Ah,
we did this, we had like 30 note takers in here. It was kind of crazy.
yeah, for some of my Zoom stuff I've been doing, I actually don't allow the note takers in because, like, if the person's going to be there, that's different. But if the person's not there, it's like I'm not going to allow your note taker to be here without you.
He was dealing with lots of technical difficulties over there, I could see, but we made it work. Well, cool. Well, thanks, Adam. If we don't have any other questions, we'll wrap this thing up. Thank you very much. All right. Have a great day, everybody. And thanks for being on here. If you want to build, shoot us an email. Talk to you later.